And so I am.
I am.
And so I am.
I am.
So I am.
I am.
And I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
What comes after it is a choice that each man creates for himself. No other man will ever put what comes after that for you. The problem is you never wanted to put anything after that. You have been you even worse. These conditions have brought you to your knees and has forced you to say, I need. So for years, you have been a slave to I want and I need. And you have been trapped into this loop, engineered and co-created by yourself and you. You have put yourself in that place. And your stories have enabled you to find comfort in I am and I need. Those standards have become the standards of your family. You have trained your family to operate by the same fucking standards. They operate by I want, and they operate by I need. Want and need is now the operating system of who you've become. And you stand today facing I am.
I am.
You are facing the I am.
I am.
Those mountains represent I am.
I am.
There is a man. There is a man beyond those mountains on an island miles away from this place. That man has invented. That man has invited. That man has created. That man has engineered. That man has forged what comes after I am. I am.
I am.
That man is a version of you that has abandoned I want, that has let go of I need, and I want and I need has now become I am.
I am.
That is the only thing that man has done, which gives them the power to be. And so for years, you are stuck in the loop of doing. You will do while he is. He has created the platform and the ground for him to operate as a free man. And in that place, he has no guilt, no shame. And I am defines him. I
I am.
enables him. I
I am.
defines his creativity. I
I am.
makes him capable. I
I am.
makes him dangerous. I
I am.
makes him powerful. I
I am.
makes him a fucking king. So I
I am.
makes him the fucking king of the kings. And so he operates by one rule, and that is I am.
I am.
That is the only rule. He knows no lies. I am.
I am.
Allow the echoes to come back to you. He is you. Exactly the way you are. He knows no judgment. He knows compassion. Because you can take everything away from him. He'll remain the most compassionate man on that island. And that gives him the power to be who he is. He's a free man. He's no longer a fucking slave to the game of doing. Doing is his slave. Because being, it's what he's chosen. So I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
Is an invention. I am.
I am.
Is an idea that you must desire with tension. Because that's who you are. And life has separated these two versions. It has put many miles between you. And this week you're here to bring that gap to a closure and meet the I am version of you. So take a moment. Deep breath in. And allow yourself to receive the echo of the I am. 100 miles away from this location. Because tonight, that echo is the only compass for you. Tonight, when it gets dark and there's no light and there's no guidance, and when the wolves and the dogs and the sheep and all the motherfucking insects and animals come out, the only guidance that you fucking have is that echo. So when you find yourself in a place lost, in a place of pain, all you have is I am.
I am.
Listen to that echo. That is your only guidance. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
That 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 I am. That I am. That's simple. That's your guide. You will hold no hand of any other man. You will listen to the one echo that is going to bring them to you. Because that version of you, it's divine sparks that exists in your heart, that comes from the above. You're a piece of him. And so I am that I am has been existent for thousands of years. The problem is, men never believed in that. The mountains have been there for thousands of years. But men got distracted. And then men created stories that separated from the only version that they truly are. So I am that I am. Let it be, let it be, let it be.
Incoming message from the glitch.
Hey, there we go. Got to unmute myself first. Get myself all situated here. Having a fun time trying to figure out what I can play and not get slap on the wrist every time from YouTube and Facebook. Apparently, Warner Time, whatever music likes to go back and claim my videos because there's 30 seconds of a song in there. Anyhow, I gotta inside baseball. Here, let's what's up, guys? So here I am on my own, I guess, this morning. We'll see if anybody trickles in here and joins me today. But I think today we will probably keep it short because it looks like my connection is not fantastic. Why is this even on? So last week we delved into with my brother Samuel J. Sneed's amazing help. It was a real pleasure to catch up with you, bro, and hear about the book Triggerless that you're working on. And I hope you're wherever you are, whatever you're working on, I hope things are going well for you as you prepare for your launch coming up at the end of this month. Yeah, if anybody else happens to catch the live stream, feel free to throw your comments in the chat, and I will try to get to those as I can. If any of you premium subscribers within the HERO Foundry Accelerator jump on here, then I'd love to get your perspective. But either way, today we are going to delve further into this new Warriors Way curriculum. So yeah, last week, I hope you guys get a chance to catch up. We shared chapter 1 of this new, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up and show you guys. Here we go. So this is why I need 2 screens. Okay. There it is. So yeah, the new Warriors Way book. Come on. This is a trainer's manual right now from Garrett J. White for those of us inside the Warrior Certified Trainer program. So it's a book of frames, really, to lead people through all the protocols of living the Warrior's Way and what I like to call the Warrior Operating System. And I'm going to be, over the course of this coming, this year, kind of adding my own stories and examples and insights and revelations and principles to the framework of this backbone that they've provided us. But so last week we looked at chapter 1, the pit of poverty, and today we're going to delve into chapter 2, the peak of prosperity. Real quick, so be aware, those of you guys who have been joining me on the live calls, I want to continue to host and facilitate this space, as a, let me see if I can resize that, as a, similar to what we used to have, the fireside chat, for those of you who are in the Shield or the Shelter communities. We've got our own private workplace, just like the Shield and Shelter used to be. And on a weekly basis going forward for the rest of this year, I want to host this space. So I'm going to call it a campfire call. And we'll, when you can, come gather for the campfire. You don't have to be here every week, of course. But when you need to check in and share where you're at, what you're working through, if you're facing challenges, or if you want to share, your wins along the way with your brothers, this is the place to be, right? But so the curriculum for the coming several months, at least, is going to be, I will march chapter by chapter through this book. And Garrett has been releasing short video trainings kind of attached to each of these chapters. And then with your help, I would love to get your guys' perspective, but regardless, whether anyone's here, whether it's just me, I'm going to go through and share my take on these subjects, these principles, and share some of my background and my personal stories of, being both in the pit and climbing that peak towards prosperity. So with that, I'm going to kill this one, and here momentarily I will pull up the training from, so real quick point for you guys who've been in the community, who come on the live calls, just so that everyone is aware. And I'll reiterate this again, for the next time, just to make sure you guys hear the message in the back seats. But this does stay within a limited, a rather small community right now. But I am going to use these as I'm sharing the chapters and our breakdowns and me kind of delving further into the pit and peak experiences. These recordings will be available through my YouTube. I don't get very many views at all. We had about 2,000 subscribers, but videos tend to get 50 to 100 views. So I'm going to be collecting them both within our small Facebook group for Warrior Acceleration. There's about 50 men in there. And for now, they will be on the YouTube channel. So just so you guys are aware of that, if there's anything super private that you want to keep confidential, probably this is not the best call for you to do that. You could join one of our war room groups or reach out to me, send me a DM. And, I'm always available if you want even a one-off, but, one-on-one hot seat sessions or one-on-one coaching would be the path to look at for the more private issues. But here we'll delve into this content each week and just share, how do you find it relevant to you? And I'll do my best to lead by example and share my personal, trials and tribulations as well as successes. So today, we looked at the pit of scarcity, as I like to call it, last week, and kind of the pain, the cascading problems that can create across all areas of your life, in your mindset, in your spiritual life, in your body, your health and fitness. These things manifest as illness. Samuel brought up how, lying to ourselves and these trigger emotions can, if we don't deal with them and process them appropriately, they can lead to pain and illness and be stored in different parts of the body. Fascinating enough. But today we're going to look at what's the climb towards the peak. So the peak of prosperity. Okay. So I actually had to go digging around because I think there was a pivot on the King's call a couple weeks back. Someone ended up on the hot seat and I had to find the actual recording of Garrett's short training here within the Queen's call. So you're going to get a little behind the scenes. Make sure I get this queued up at the right place. So give me 1 second here. And this will go about 10 minutes. We're going to watch this short training from Coach Garrett at Warrior HQ. And as you watch this, if anyone is tuning in or when you see the recording, as you're watching, just go ahead and take a couple notes, just whatever stands out to you. What are what jumps out to you? What lessons are you hearing or what revelations crop up for you as you tune in and listen to this training? And then we'll come back and hear what you guys have to say, and I'll share my perspective. So, this is the Queen's call, and here we go. I hope I got the audio.
Chapter 2, the peak of prosperity. Now, when we talk about this contrast between this pit of poverty and this second idea of prosperity, what we have is what the original intent of this world was, which was abundance and prosperity. This was what Adam and Eve were born into. They were born into a garden filled with abundance. There was no fear, there was no doubt, there was no shame, there was no guilt, there was no frame of poverty. Partaking of the fruit, we inserted polarity. Now, poverty caused a fall away from reality. So when we pursue this prosperity, when we pursue abundance, we are pursuing the original intent of this world. But the poverty is never going to end. all that's going to happen is our pursuit of the next level of the peak of prosperity. This pit to peak game begins with this conversation of awakening. See, when you wake up, you come to terms with what your poverty has been. And you awaken to a communion with God and a calling to something more. You come to recognize that being in poverty is a sin, that to be in scarcity is a sin. It is to fall from the power and the possibility of what God has built in you to have and experience here in this life, not just when you die. That this pursuit here is the intention of having it all. That the ultimate peak of prosperity is having it all. That your body, that your being, that your balance, and that your business all rise up above this baseline of poverty. We leave scarcity into abundance. And in this place, for the first time, we have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to feel the truth of what our life was actually meant to be. And this becomes a very interesting pursuit, because as we begin to awaken into this place and we begin to see the fact that the poverty that we're in no longer serves us, and we begin to choose to climb this mountain, to climb out of the pit to this peak of prosperity, as we choose this as an individual, not as a couple, not as a family. It must be decided by you first. When you choose this, or you're leading and guiding another person, this decision to awaken to the reality of that poverty, but also to the communion with God at the peak of prosperity. There is an activation of truth. Truth is the game of transformation. To go from the pit of poverty to the peak of prosperity is a pursuit of more. It is a pursuit of having it all. It is a pursuit of living God's fullest purpose for my life in this place. But it is an activation of truth. And where truth is, God is. And where God is, transformation is possible. For to rise from the pit of scarcity to the peak of prosperity is an utter life transformation. When one maintains that active truth to the fact that the body they currently have pales in comparison to the body that they could and should have, that they activate the truth that their current communion with God as it is pales in comparison in the pit to the newest peak that they are pursuing. When they look at and compare and activate the truth of their current relationships, their marriage and their children, there is a commitment to rise to this new level of truth. And that goes also for money, business, and currency. This activation of truth, though, this transformation of going from this person to that person, whether you are doing it yourself or you are a trainer that is guiding someone to that place, that guidance from the pit to the peak is a process, not only activating truth, but of accelerating the soul. See, the soul is pursuing the truth of its existence. This mind and this body that we've been given are temples and vessels. They're mechanical weapons used in this place to experience this three-dimensional world. But before this body was, and after this body will be, is this soul that sits inside of you and me. This is the piece of us that is pursuing an acceleration. The expansion we're looking for is not in the expansion of having, it is in the expansion of being. It is ultimately the ability for you to reveal all of what God has built you to be. Consider that it is less about trying to become something, but this pursuit of the peak of prosperity where we have it all, this pursuit is a conversation of revelation. That acceleration of the soul is simply revelation or revealing of what has always been, not acquiring what has never existed before. It is not a becoming of things, but rather a revealing of what has always been. And so this awakening to communion, this activation of truth, and this acceleration of the soul invites us into a place of acceptance. For the first time, we begin to accept the humanity of ourselves, of our spouse, of our family, and where we once attacked in our own scarce resources of our mind, we now embrace, love, and empathetically connect. This acceptance of your spouse being an imperfect person, this acceptance of your partner becomes a natural byproduct of the acceleration of the soul, allowing you to see the world that you live in from a place that prior to seemed impossible. And so you hunt this down, looking for this acceptance, not knowing that what sits in front of this acceptance is an awakening. And that awakening follows an activation. That activation follows with an acceleration. And that acceleration ultimately leads you into a place of acceptance. Acceptance of yourself for what you actually are. And acceptance of your spouse for what he or she truly is. That acceptance brings about an alignment. That alignment is a connection with your children and with the rest of the world that is in integrity. An alignment of purpose, an alignment of the pursuit of prosperity, an alignment of the pursuit of what God built us to be, not the scarcity and the fear and the doubt and the obligation and the morality that people speak of, where fear and doubt and worry cast us deeper and darker into the pit. No, rather the opposite of this. An acceptance of the truth of what we are, and in that acceptance, an alignment with your family, an alignment with how they operate, an alignment with your children, an alignment with your family as a unit. There's arguably nothing more important to any of us than to have a family that is aligned with partnership with spouse and kids. Our society falls apart not because of our desires, but because of our lack of alignment. When this occurs, ascendance becomes our reality. We ascend, a constant and perpetual and eternal ascension, an ascension to higher levels of prosperity in every area of life, wealth as God truly desired it for us, not the poverty that pastors and others preach, the acceptance of abundance and prosperity and dominion over all the earth, a willingness to see the truth in each of us by having let go of the pit and pursued the peak, having rejected poverty and accepted prosperity, having pushed away scarcity and brought into our lives abundance. But this requires a decision. The decision is simple. Will you let go of the pit to pursue the peak? Will you divorce yourself from poverty in order to embrace and be married to prosperity? Will you reject this idea of one-dimensional living and accept this reality of the four-dimensional life of having? Having it all and freedom are our outcome. But it is impossible to get these without rising from the pit of poverty to the peak of prosperity.
All right, so there you have it. So, yeah, chapter 2, the peak of prosperity. I'm going to pull up our whiteboard. So here we have it. Last week we looked at the pit. You know, we're calling it poverty in this narrative, or you could think of it as scarcity, right? Rising towards abundance and eventually prosperity. But we looked at the darkness, the disconnection you find yourself in when you're down there, you know, the desensitization and sedation of the pain. You devalue your soul. It can lead to divorcing from, partners, or metaphorically divorcing yourself, in many ways from people and the world around you, destroying your family and damning your life. Not a fun place to be. But as we dig out of that, as we see, life will always continue to have these ups and downs. There is no avoiding it. And I suppose as you rise, as you follow this ascension path that Coach Garrett is painting for us, you still have these sometimes vast ups and downs. Why is this not pinching? Here we go. We've mapped this out for the last couple of weeks, looking at the many different pits and peaks that you'll encounter, especially if you're on a journey to build a business like I am, or like Samuel or Steve or Brandon, any of these guys in our small mastermind. And so as you're going on your ride through life, it's gonna have ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride of valleys and peak experiences. But we have maybe talked to death the darkest abyss. I've shared what I call the abyss, my deepest, darkest pit experience, the trauma, the horror, the PTSD that I went through. We've looked at that in the past weeks and months. So now we find ourselves on the precipice of the most luminous peaks of, where prosperity can be found. So prosperity, people very frequently kind of misunderstand this term to mean strictly, financial wealth, material abundance. But the principles that Garrett is laying out for us, and I think the principles that the entire warrior operating system are built upon, is that really prosperity is a state of being, as he says. And it's something that, we really can only find when we have this alignment of our soul, our purpose, and connection to something transcendent, connection to the divine, connection to God. So I don't want anyone to be triggered by these words. So, feel free to translate into your own language or your own worldview, if you would. But I believe that, and I know through my experience, if I'm out of connection with not just with the people around me, but with God, with that higher purpose calling me forward, then life starts to, fall apart and devolve into this chaos and this darkness. But when you can start to align, the different areas of your life towards what's best for you and the people around you, your spouse, your kids, your community, your customers, etc., then we can rise and ascend towards this destination of having it all, which is really what God intended. When in Genesis they talk about dominion over the earth, it means to be a good steward on the one hand, but also, this is our place to make of it what we will, to shape and sculpt the garden, and have fun. That's what God intended. Not for us to be miserable or just to marinate in the pain endlessly. I mean, that's hell. And we get to experience the full gamut, right? From hell up to heaven. But prosperity is when we embody. It's about being. It's when we embody a state of spiritual, emotional, and physical affluence across all areas, across your mindset and spiritual life, in your body, your health, and in your in your wealth, your financial situation, in your business, and the things that you create, your career, as well as reaching and touching all the relationships around you. So your balance, your spouse, your kids, your family, and the people that you're responsible for leading. So let's really dive into mapping out what this transformative power of true prosperity, what it means. Okay. So we've looked at the darkness and the pit of poverty. So what do we find at the peak? What does prosperity really mean? As many of us inside Warrior have come to learn, it starts with awakening and remembering. But there's several stages. Make sure I spell this right. Accelerate. Accept. Oop. Align and ascend. So the first step to break out of that self-made prison called the pit or the abyss, as I have described it, prosperity begins with reawakening your soul and really your connection to the people around you, to life. I certainly became, after my trauma experience in late 2016, I became just so fear-driven, so paranoid, that the first thing I did was I distanced myself from other people. I didn't know who I could trust, and I began to create this self-fulfilling situation that ended up disconnecting me from everyone around me. And so while my pit, like the trigger that took me down there was an event that was kind of beyond my control. An event that showed me that I had been ignorant of the truth, and it put me in a state of shock. But what I held myself in this prison, in a sense, this bondage, by continuing to push others away. So to break ourselves out of that deep, dark pit, the first thing is you need to awaken to the fact that you have put yourself in bondage, and to reactivate those connections to the world around us. And this is both the seen and the unseen world around us. It's about recognizing the shared human experience, feeling the collective heartbeat of humanity, which I think, the tapestry of all of us together, the collective consciousness is, in a sense, that is our connection to God, to the divine, the big grand scheme, the higher purpose and the calling, that calls out to you, that is called out to me. By opening ourselves up to others around us, we can begin to experience, profound moments of presence again, understanding, empathy, and sharing joy. Just this human interaction and experience is what we're put here for. So if we're avoiding that, that's keeping us in this pit of isolation and fear and aloneness. But you are not alone. So you need to awaken to the truth that there are people and experiences and beauty and blessings all around you if you will awaken your communion. So this sense of connection and communion, being at one, being in the presence of each other, giving each other witness, holding the space to see and hear, to be seen and be heard. This sense of communion reminds us that we're never truly alone in our journey. And it forges these deeper bonds that can nourish your soul. So let's awaken your communion. This is why, a church is I think, a very valuable place. I'm over nearly 40 years. One thing I have learned about myself is I am not much of a joiner, as they say. You know, I probably wouldn't want to join any club that would have me, right? But so I'm not, I mean, I have attended many churches. I have explored different faiths across the world, and I have participated in a lot of different religious and spiritual group experiences, as well as my own unique, individual uh, experiences, countless experiences. But there is something very powerful in this idea of communion, and that's why churches and religion always talks about communion. It's one thing to say experience Catholic communion in Mass, and take the sacrament of communion. That's a conversation maybe for another day, but that's a very interesting concept. But there's also the communion, not in connection only with your idea of the divine or the transcendent, but how that manifests itself in the people around you, in your life, and in the relationships that God has blessed you with. So step one is to reconnect with the people that matter and the people that are in your life. I mean, frankly, whether you want those connections or not, you have got to start where you are, and you've got to work with what you have, right? And the next, before I move on, I think this is also why, for example, that our group here with the HERO Foundry is so important, right? This is why it's important for you guys to come here and participate on this call every couple of weeks. Come check in. Again, like I say, you don't have to be here every week, but regardless, you need to find somewhere where you have this connection to others, and you can experience this feeling of communion with the community. What's the word? Why am I forgetting it? That for a long time I loved. Oh man, I'm having a total brain fart moment. But I think it's the Greek word for community. I wish Samuel was here to help fill in the gaps for me when I'm a little tired still from a late night working. But I'm gonna have to come back to that because I'm having I'm really, my brain is skipping out. But regardless, meeting with you guys, having a brotherhood, having a small community or a mastermind group that you meet with regularly to share the struggles and the wins, particularly if you're on the entrepreneurship path, if you're paving your own path, pioneering your own direction in life, and doing something that most people around you are not doing. You've got to seek out your people, your community, and you got to find ways and rituals even to share that communion together, to express yourself, to be heard, and to receive, to connect and hear the perspectives and pain, even the trials that others are going through, because we learn from each other, we reflect to each other, and we're here to encourage one another. So this group alone has been so rewarding, and I just wanted to thank you guys all again for participating, for contributing, for being a part of what we're doing here with the HERO Foundry, with the accelerator calls. But this leads into the conversation of truth, right? So what do we activate? You activate your truth. Prosperity thrives in an environment where you can be authentic, and prosperity roots itself in the truth. Okay, so as we ascend, it becomes imperative to activate your personal truth, no matter what the cost. What does this mean? I mean, you've got to live from, or you've got to lead from what you live. So if you're hiding, if you're wearing a mask, if you're lying, you're BSing, you're fronting, many people, I mean, this is the world we live in. This is in many ways kind of what we're bred and raised with, is actually to lie and to pretend, right? But results, as we know, come about from the facts, real, raw, relevant results, right? So if you want to have the real fruit, then you've got to live in the facts. So no matter what the cost, so you're going to lose friends along the way when you unleash the real you, when you really take a stand for what truly matters to you, when you begin to exercise that courage and bravery to really speak what you truly believe, and share your perspective authentically. You're gonna repel some people. Frankly, let's be real. I certainly repel a lot of people. Maybe that's why I'm on the call by myself today. But regardless, you've got to show up. And you've got to just be who God made you to be. You've got to unleash the real you. And this is a process. It's not like an overnight thing. It's something, you discover and remember. That's why we say awaken and remember. But you kind of uncover this truth of who you really are, your soul purpose. And you discover your own integrity, I think, as you go. But we'll more on that in a minute. You've got to shed any kind of societal expectations or communal expectations from even your parents and family. I've certainly done that after, I think, about 18 years now, not having a job. I can't remember how many times my father, my grandmother, especially, these people, they worry about me, so they want what's best for me, but they have certain expectations. But to really truly live my life, the one I came here as a soul to live, I have to take off those expectations. I have to question my long-held beliefs and narratives that I've inherited from the people around me, from society. And I've got to really learn to embrace the essence of who I truly am, beyond the stories and the baggage that we bring with us, from past experiences. By actively pursuing your truth and what that even means for you, you begin to gradually release yourself and free yourself from the chains of conformity. You begin to slowly find this thing inside, and you tap into this inexhaustible source of energy and passion. I know my experience has certainly been, there was a few years where I was walking dead, because I was living in the pit and I was so disconnected, and I was accepting almost this state of being asleep, avoiding the truth, hiding, pretending that everything was okay, and not speaking what I had to say, not speaking my truth, my perspective. And so it felt like being, in a stupor, being, I don't know. You've all been there. It's hard to describe though, but there's like just this heaviness, right? And as I have done the reps, and exercise those muscles, like sharing what I really think and exposing like even some embarrassing truth about who I am and things I've done and mistakes I've made, but then the good side of things too, but exposing the reality, the real raw truth. The more reps I've got, it has built me up from the inside out, right? And so it sets you on fire. And that's how I feel in the last month or two, especially. It's like I'm really starting to get my energy, my excitement back. And there's this drive that wasn't there before. It was a slog, for many years. I had to pull myself out of bed when I was facing the darkness of the pit. But these days, I'm often excited to jump out of bed, and get to work and do what I feel is, the work I'm called to do. So you begin to access the full truth of who you genuinely are as a soul here, living this experience in a human body. And so that leads you to the next stage of acceleration. What are we accelerating? You're accelerating your soul. So if you can open the door, the possibility of sharing, exposing the real truth and not covering it up with lies, not hiding, not pretending, not being a poser, not fronting, if you can embrace this adventure that is the truth, telling the truth, seeking truth in yourself and around you, first and foremost in yourself, and living and walking in truth. If you can do that, if you can truly activate your truth, you can build on that solid foundation. It's not like building a life on sand where it's always crumbling under your feet. But instead, our souls can learn, we can find a runway to soar. So prosperity is not merely about accumulating material wealth, but it's about accelerating your spiritual growth and your personal growth, by rising from scarcity into abundance. If you find yourself, or when you're in scarcity or a state of poverty, your only purpose at that moment really is to get into abundance across all areas, all realms. At the same time is what we're trying to do here with the Warrior operating system, which is why it's quite a feat, or it's a big load to carry. But as you build on that foundation of truth, you find real purpose. So it's not just the daily grind. Your life isn't about just checking the boxes, or punching a time card. You start to pull yourself out of that monotony of just day to day going on autopilot, and you find real purpose, you find passion, and you discover a higher calling, which allows our souls to reach speeds they've never known, right? So I've been on both sides of this equation many times, but I can say for sure, I found this in the past. Interestingly, in the next few steps, we're going to look at the connection to others, to your balance, your relationships. But I can say I certainly found this excitement, this driving passion, and soul purpose in prior stages or iterations, of my life. Especially as a single man, I found my family in a sense. This was before I was married or had a long-term partner or kids, but you find your soul family, and you start to connect and just attract and almost become magnetic to the people that are after the same things that you are. And so yeah, doors begin to open, and you start to resonate with like-minded people and attract like-minded, like you attract your tribe. Like attracts like. Your vibe attracts your tribe, as they say, and you start to pull in. I think I really do believe this after many ups and downs on the roller coaster. But that's when you're down, you attract misery. Misery loves company. But as you build yourself up from the inside out, you begin to attract, and you're I was having this conversation with my dad the other day. It's like I went through a couple years recently of just really not taking good care of myself, not valuing myself, and my self-worth just diminished and diminished and diminished. and it's been a long, slow process over a couple of years now. But he said how he sees this huge transformation in me, just my physical appearance, my energy, I guess. And you see it in people all the time, right? Don't you? Like, you ever notice when someone is like glowing, right? You can tell when someone's on fire. But you start to your self-worth grows. You start to expect more. You start to have a higher standard for yourself and for others around you. You have stronger boundaries, and you expect more for how people treat you and what you deserve. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being selfish in that sense. But you begin to attract better things, better treatment from the people around you. And so it allows your soul to kind of create this acceleration in life. And that's what enables us to start charting the course to new unexplored heights, new territories of self-awareness and enlightenment on this amazing journey of life. Now, how does this impact the people around you? Because, like I said, I think I had several years and just amazing, astounding peak experiences as a single man. I think it's easier when all you have is just yourself to worry about, right? You don't have the responsibilities of a wife or husband or children, especially. I love those things, but when you're a single person, man or woman, you get to call the shots much more effectively for yourself, right? You got nothing holding you back. But so how does all this journey of awakening and activating your soul, your truth, and acceleration, how does this journey impact the people around us? Well, you need to learn to accept others, but primarily, let's talk about many of us. It often is about your partner in a relationship. So within this sanctuary, so to speak, of prosperity, as you begin to cultivate this state, and it's a state of being. Prosperity is less, as Garrett, I believe, mentioned, it's less about actually having things, although that will begin to reflect in your life, having it all. But it starts with who and what you're being and becoming more conscious of that. Like, who are you called to become? What matters to you? What do you want to stand for? What impact do you want to make in the world? What legacy do you want to leave? But as you become more, as you grow, then it just by default it begins to trickle down and cascade across, like what you do, what you're able to do, what you're capable of doing, and therefore it impacts the things that you have, what you're capable of having, and the material wealth and trappings, that you can create and gather for yourself. But in relationship, we need to learn to accept, because you finally discover, like, oh, I've been, in the pit. I have accepted low standards of myself. I've made mistakes in the past. You're accepting the real truth, the good and the bad, the dark and the light, the ugly and the pretty side of the truth. And so within that, as you begin to build that out, this prosperity in your life, I think you realize that you have to, and you feel more and more compelled to accept others as they are. You see the possibility, the potential in them. You encourage them on their journey, but ultimately we learn to accept each other and accept, say, your wife or your husband or your children. But first of all, your relationships, as you make this climb, I have found that you have to demand more of your partner, actually. So there's a delicate dance. It's not about coercion or forcing anybody to do anything against their will, but you do kind of learn to gently but firmly almost demand or expect more. You raise the standard first with and in yourself. You lead by example, but then you accept, but you also encourage others. Like you're either coming with me or you're on a different trajectory on your own soul's journey, but you learn to raise the bar, and your relationships. I have found, even when I was, for example, with my wife, really negative, and I was blaming her for a long period of time, off and on, for different things, and projecting things out at her. But I found, like, as soon as I raised the bar and the standard for myself, and I voiced this out to her and shared in a way like, hey, we both deserve better than the current state of low vibes or misery at times, for going both ways, right? You start to see more clearly and become more and more conscious of the fact that not only do you deserve the best, but your partner deserves the best. And so it's not about pointing the finger at anyone, but the relationships become reflections of mutual respect and understanding. They become a sanctuary for you to grow and encourage each other along the way. And so accepting one's spouse doesn't mean just tolerating them, as they are, or, putting your hands in the air saying, okay, whatever. I did that for off and on as well. I did that a couple of years. But, it's about genuinely learning to understand another person, learning to appreciate them for what they do, bring to your life, and cherishing the essence of who they are. It's a dance of these two souls intertwining, in this music, this rhythm that celebrates both your individuality and the unity that you can find together with another person. It's a hard dance to do, but that's the dance that we signed up for. So you in the state of prosperity, as you're being more, doing more, and sucking less, as you'll grow, it encourages and provokes the people around you to either grow or fall by the wayside. But ideally, it kind of inspires our partner to also join us on the journey in a way that we're leading from by example and leading from what we truly live, right? Not shouting at people, not demanding that they do things that we're unwilling to do, but showing by example that, like, you have, awoken, you've activated yourself, you're on this acceleration path, and now you accept others around you. Everyone is doing as best as they can, but by cultivating this attitude, you are able to finally create a marriage rooted in truth. And as Garrett said, where truth is, God is there. And where God is, transformation can happen. So this creates the container for both you and your wife, your spouse, husband, partner, to begin to really make change and soul growth. So this ultimately can lead to creating the space. Like, this was my struggle for a very long time. As I said before, it's so much easier to go and have a wild hero's journey around the world, across 4 continents, say, and meet like incredible people doing amazing things, and have these movie-like experiences, almost these cinematic experiences. It's easy to do that. What do they say? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Now, so it's easier and maybe quicker to forge that path alone. But I have found it can be painful, and discouraging when you're trying to bring a whole bunch of people together around you along, if you feel like you're pulling and carrying people up the mountain, right? But prosperity, once you get your head around this, that state of being, that spiritual state of prosperity extends its nurturing touch to the family fabric. It strengthens and aligns your relationships. So as you begin to rise and ascend towards the peak of prosperity, you will likely realize, as I have, that prosperity, it's not an individual's victory, but it's a collective group ascent together. So I have discovered in the last 2 years, and especially these last few, like I've reunited in the Philippines with my wife, with my family-in-law, which it is a challenge, boys. Thank goodness my mother-in-law doesn't live with us, but we rent her an apartment about 3 minutes walk away, and she's here all day, every day, which is great. She's very helpful. She brings a lot to the family. But this was the challenge, right? It's like I was on a path, and it's taken me a lot of time, a lot of energy and effort to set the frames and really bring everyone around me kind of into the fold to understand what I'm even doing, what I'm pursuing. But our family is finally beginning to find our rhythm together. It is harmonious balance where each member is moving together in tandem, aligned towards where I want to go, where I want to take my kids, and the future I'm striving to build. But it also allows, everyone together is navigating this path where we're able to create collective well-being for all of us and happiness, and also everyone can kind of have their own unique path at the same time. So that's this alignment with your family, your children, extended family, parents, and this culmination of this journey begins to see every facet of our lives elevated. So that's where Garrett talks about ascending, or this path of ascension. Every experience, whether day-to-day mundane or out of the ordinary, peak experiences, but they all begin to take on more sense of real purpose and joy. And your life isn't just this monotonous day-to-day autopilot, but you can celebrate life together with the people around you, the people you care about. Every moment, from spending quiet time alone with yourself, reading, or doing the inner work as we do, from that to sharing these like holidays, sharing an amazing family gathering around the table. All of this can become testament to the beauty and potential of human experience, of the journey of life. And so, all of this joy and connection and prosperity is impossible when you are living in the pit. But if you can let go of the pit, and it is a decision to release yourself from that bondage and stop marinating in misery sometimes. And you have to, it's a set of choices that go on forever, right? To create this alignment, to have integrity, as Jordan Peterson says, to kind of stack things, to stack the different elements of your life one on another, so that you're pursuing what's best for you at the same time that it lines up with what's best for your partner, with what's best for your children, with what's best for your community around you, with what's best for your clients, customers, your team, employees, etc. As you begin to align all these things in integrity with who you really are and what truly matters to you, with your truth, and as you're pursuing what matters to you, and you let go of the old stories, the scarcity thinking, the victimhood mentality, you open up this exciting path of prosperity for you and everyone around you. It's like the most exciting freaking thing, right? I know you've at least had some small taste of this as well, but this is the journey that we're on together. This is what I want to lead all of you towards, and this is why I have been so impassioned for me to share this warrior operating system, because these tools, these frames, and strategies for dealing with myself, for dealing with the traumas that I have experienced, for dealing with all the emotional baggage, and for getting my own inner narrative aligned in the direction I want to go. These tools, these weapons, allowed me to free myself from the most painful, ugly, horrific abyss. Talk about a pit of scarcity. I was so alone and afraid and hiding from everyone and everything, and so I became so disconnected from life. I caught myself one day like I was a freaking zombie, and asleep. But these are the tools that allowed me to build myself a ladder out from that dark place up towards to reach for the light of the peak. So as I wrap up this conversation around the peak of prosperity, it's paramount to understand that prosperity is not a destination. It's not an end destination, even though I kind of map it out that way, at times. But it's this undulating, never-ending journey. You're going to have many peaks. You're going to have many pits. But it's a journey. Prosperity is a commitment, and to truly create freedom for yourself and abundance, it's an evolution. It's a commitment to your own continual soul's evolution for life. So this isn't a weekend seminar. This isn't like a 3-hour workshop and then everything is amazing forever. So there is no real happily ever after, right? But it's a commitment. So it's about being more, becoming more, and remaining forever devoted to this path of like evolving yourself and manifesting really yourself as the best ideal version of you. And it's a daily choice that we make. Some days you're going to make mistakes. Some days you're going to fall off the path, but you better start to catch yourself as quickly as you can. And the next day you wake up, you dust yourself off, and you recommit to the path of expansion and growth. Because if you're sulking and if you're sitting in victimhood, feeling sorry for yourself, then you're gonna stay down there in that dark pit, and you're gonna stay stuck in a state of poverty, and all you're going to be able to attract are other miserable people, or customers who can't even pay, for example, right? So while the pit has this kind of intense gravitational pull that is always pulling you down, the peak is always within sight. and it's waiting for you to make the climb up the mountain. It's waiting for you to choose life, to choose vitality, to choose yes, to say yes to the adventure on a daily basis. And as you climb, you realize that the true essence of prosperity lies not in what you have, but in who you become. So prosperity to me, what is prosperity? I would have loved to share this conversation with a couple of my brothers, but real quick before I wrap this up, prosperity. Yeah, what does that really mean? I mean, certainly it is an integral piece of prosperity is the ability to pay your bills, right? It's the ability to solve bigger and bigger problems with financial resources, amongst other things, but that's definitely a part of it. But what else is prosperity? Prosperity to me is the ability to, own your time and be able to make choices about how you spend your time, where you live, who you surround yourself with, and how you invest your limited time. So for me, that manifests as like I spend a ton of time with my kids. I get to go on a lot of trips, but just like day trips. I take my kids to the beach 3 times a week. I just had a wonderful weekend getaway, a late Valentine's trip, and actually, 2 nights, just me and the wife, away from the children. So that was really, overdue and really a phenomenal just time for us to share together. Prosperity to me is the ability, it's someone was, I saw a thread on Facebook and someone was whining about, what does it cost to get from A to B, here on our island? To me, prosperity is the blessing of not having to worry too much about a couple dollars here and there. It's the blessing of being able to be generous to others who need it more than me. It's really a state of mind and a state of being. So it really is I think, a spiritual principle than just about like the amount of cash that you have in your pocket. Right. It looks like I am joined by my brother Samuel. Let me see if I can bring you on here, brother. Let me see. Hey, bro. I was just about to wrap up. I don't know if you're on mute, but I don't know if you were able to tune in and catch much of me. Would you like to bring a little something to the table before we end this for the day? How are you?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you, man?
Yeah, I didn't want to butt in, man. You're doing such a great job explaining all this tonight. I was like, man, he's on a freaking roll. But yeah, you did. That was awesome, dude.
Thank you.
Actually, I just got off of an 8.
I guess I did rant for about an hour, didn't I? So I did all right.
Nah, but you were really like leading right through this whole thing from awaken to ascend. I thought it's a beautiful thing. And if anybody's just catching the end of this and hasn't watched the whole thing, go back and watch it because it was really good. I think you laid out the path well, and I love the fact that you were talking about prosperity and how misunderstood it is. You're right. Like when most people think about it, especially in like the church world, it's like a default thing where they're like, they just go right to money. Like it's all about the money. And they forget, like, it's like they've never read Psalm 1 and understood like it's right there in Psalm 1. Matter of fact, I almost want to pull that up and read it real quick if I can.
Let's do it.
Let me find it. Let me find it real quick because it's people talk about the prosperity gospel, which is just like it's a term that's been floating around for many, many years that, TV preachers kind of is where it came from. They're like, oh, you send us some money and you'll get blessed. And many songs have been written about it, but it's not biblical at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of Christians kind of shy away from the whole conversation about even abundance and prosperity, right? Because of that, it kind of has this negative connotation, right?
Yeah, and I mean, anything that, especially when it comes to like, understanding what's in the Bible, like you have to read it for yourself. You can't just take someone's word for it, because most people, that's what they do. They go to church, the pastor talks about it, and they're like, oh, okay, they might read a little couple pages. And I heard one of my teachers said it like this. He's like, because, a lot of people like toot their horn and they're like, hey, I'm going to read the Bible in a year, and it's like they're just rushing to get through it instead of slowing down and allowing the Bible to get through to them.
Yeah. Let it go through you.
Yeah. And it's like, I even remember like seeing Bob Proctor one time. He had this little book stand on his table. And, he was in his 80s, but he had a little book stand and he would have set a book there. And he was doing a training one evening. I was watching him and he was talking about he's like, yeah, I've been reading this one page for the past 3 months. I was like, what? Like, you've been reading one page for 3 months? But he was studying whatever was on that page, like for 3 months so that he would get it, because there was something about it that he needed to get that he wasn't getting. And he just, every day he read that page for 3 months until whatever it was, clicked for him. I thought that was pretty amazing. But yeah, check this out. This is crazy right here. This is Psalm 1. And the book of Proverbs is always a great place for people that haven't actually read the Bible for themselves. Start with the book of Proverbs, but also start with the book of Psalms. They're right next to each other, almost right in the middle of the Bible. But here's what it says. The two paths. So the first half is godly and the second half, not so much. Listen to what it says about the godly person here. It says, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or set foot on the path of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. Social media, keyboard warriors. There you go. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. So there's meditation and what you should meditate on. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, yielding its fruit in season, whose leaf does not wither, and who prospers in all he does. That's the first half of Psalm 1. Now, let me just pause there and ask you, what did you just hear in the first half of Psalm 1?
Yeah, I think it relates to kind of, I suppose, what I was saying along the lines of your vibe attracts your tribe, right? But you have to be, you need to wake up and be as conscious as you can be of that fact. Yeah, be mindful of whose company you keep, right? And the things you focus on, because it's always I think you always have two paths, no matter where you are, right? And one leads towards hell and one leads towards heaven, in a sense. But yeah, if you're focused and in alignment or in integrity, in the right direction, that your what you do will prosper, right?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It says, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of wicked, or set foot on the path of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. In other words, the blessed man is not looking for the sinful path to just, all right, man, that's the way I'm going today. He's not looking for that. And he's not going to be hanging out with the mockers. He ain't going to hang out with those guys. Like you said, your vibe attracts your tribe. So if you're not willing to hang out with those people because they're wicked, and vice versa is true. Let's read the second half of this, because the second half's crazy. Says, not so the wicked, for they are like chaff driven off by the wind. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord guards the path of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. So he's kind of telling you, that second part's a little shorter, but it's nothing good is there, right? There's nothing good on the path of the wicked. There's nothing good coming from mocking people. you know, playing along. And, you know, there's all these little bot guys that, you know, they show up on social media today. And, you know, you put some good content out there trying to like maybe attract some of these righteous people, right? That believe that they are of the blessed ones because they believe that way, right? They're just trying to do the right thing, right? You're trying to get a good vibe with your tribe. And then some mocker guy shows up with a cat as his profile pic and just starts talking trash all over your stuff. He's just trying to draw you onto the path of the mocker, to piss you off, to trigger you, and to see if you're immature enough to fall for it. That's really what it is. Like when I was immature in the spirit, I would fall for it. Well, who the hell are you? You know, screw you, F off, you know, piss off, you know, just I'd fall into it, right? So, you know, with time, you learn not to do that because you recognize from studying Psalm 1 that, oh, that's who those people are. That's who my haters are. I don't have to play that game. Matter of fact, it's unwise to even be in the council of these folks. Of course, they're going to show up on social media, but I don't have to play with them. I don't even have to acknowledge them. You know, and that just pisses them off more. But you know what? That's their problem. Right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's funny how these days it is a bigger and bigger challenge, I think, for all of us because we're so connected with the internet and we're so connected to it all day long, right? For many of us, it's right there in your pocket, it's in your hand for hours a day. But yeah, and because I don't know, because we're not like physically in the presence of each other, I think for a lot of people, it just what's the word? It brings out the worst in them, you know. Yeah, people are able to. I mean, they're hiding behind, like you say, you know, a cat picture and a fake name or whatever. But yeah, it's everywhere, right? It's hard to avoid, but I think, yeah, like you say, we learn to almost just
Your mic's starting to act up.
Yeah, I think I just capped it. I hit it too hard. But is it okay? Is it okay?
It's still a little gargly.
Still being funny.
The USB mic?
Sensitive. Yeah.
I just snagged on there by accident. But, what was I saying? I think you know more and more.
Turned you into Mr. Electro voice.
Well, maybe that's the sign. It's time to wind down. But,
Maybe you can reset it.
More and more. Okay, you go ahead and share more. Then I'll see if I can do anything here. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that's fine.
There, is that on again?
Yeah, you sound better now.
Better?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's so
anyway,
interesting. You know, nowadays, because we have the internet, you can jump on, like, I like to jump on BibleHub.com because it's searchable. It's got a little search bar. And you can just put a word in like prosperity and just hit a button, and like every verse where that shows up in the Bible just pops up for you.
Yeah, I just pulled up Bible Gateway as you were reading, but
yeah, Bible Gateway is another one. Yep.
And I've got my real Bible open, but yeah, I usually look at the NIV. But
what you'll find if you'll do a study, if you'll just do a Bible study on the word prosper or prosperity, what you will find is every single time that it comes up and every single time it's mentioned, it's referring to everything you were talking about tonight, about a state of being. So I love the way that you described that and the way Garrett described it. It is a state of being because it's a state of being before God. Yeah. And that applies to all areas of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, you got that Psalm 1 pulled up? Yeah.
Yeah. The other scripture that came to my mind, and I'm not 100% sure which verses it is, but I think it's the book of Matthew. But you know, where Jesus says something to the effect of seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you.
Mhm.
Right. And so, yeah, it's a vibe, it's an attitude. I think it's about what you focus on. Right. And yeah, it's about looking for the,
Well, when you seek
looking for,
God first, then you're willing to put your focus on him first in all things. See, that's the piece I think a lot of people, they think, oh, yeah, I'm seeking after God. But then, for 5 minutes and then now I'm going about my day. Whereas,
yeah,
I'm actually seeking him first in all things. So like, which means basically, I mean, what does that even mean? How do you practically put that into application? And I like to
right.
just think about it as like, you're co-creating with him. So no matter what you're doing, no matter when you're like sitting here right now talking to you, it's no different than if he's sitting in a chair right next to me. Like, what do you want to
Right.
say? It's something,
Well,
it's
and
like
yeah,
it's that kind of relationship, right? It's like he's just kind of right there with you all the time, and like almost like the little kid with the imaginary friend, it's kind of like
Mhm.
that. Um,
Yeah, I
think,
think, he's in the conversations that we have,
mhm.
right? He's in my wife, he's in my children, he's in, he is even in the people who are focused on the wrong things, I think, to some degree, right? But yeah, you got to find him everywhere, right? And kind of
Well, I think it's a
cherish
matter
people
of,
around you as if it's you got to remember that Jesus is in them too.
that's the challenging piece is, I found a book years ago. I think it was by Craig Beck. It was called Fragments of God. It was a really fascinating book on how he basically was saying that like each of us are born the day we're born as a human being, like we've got a fragment of God within us. Like it's there. It's a fragment, right? It's like the way he was talking about it is it was a fragment that was there, which is basically our conscious, letting us know right from wrong, the stuff that he put in us to know right from wrong, which is why even an atheist actually knows right from wrong, whether or not they want to acknowledge where that came from, right? I think Frank Turek wrote a book called Stealing from God, about how atheists steal from God to use his moral laws to fight their case, which is ridiculous. But at the same time, I think there's a piece of it that where was I going with that? It was something to do with I think it was the translations around it. And I'll come back to it in a second. But yeah, I wanted to pull up something real quick. Like I think it's the book of 3 John, chapter 1, verses 2. And this is New Testament stuff, right? Because a lot of the stuff you're going to find when you do a Bible search on Prosper, it's going to be in the Old Testament. There's a whole bunch of it, all the way back through Kings, everything. But in 3 John 1:2, and check this out. This is interesting. In the King James, it says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." But then I like to take it over and look at like, what does it mean in Aramaic? Because I find the Aramaic translations to be like, check on King James in a sense. It says in Aramaic, it says, "Our beloved, I pray for you that you will prosper in all things and be well, just as your soul prospers." So you don't have the prospereth, you don't have the English in there. But
Yeah,
that goes along
King
with what you
James
were
was
saying.
all fine for me with all old English, but
Well, a lot of people say the King James is the original King James, and even the one that came out before that. I think it was in like 1599. What was that? The Geneva Bible. The Geneva Bible had like 12 or 13 more books in it from 1599 before the 1611 King James came out. The Apocrypha was originally in the King James 1611. They took it out a couple hundred years later, but so there's been some stuff that's kind of been like moved around by the Catholic Church and so forth. But this whole premise that this prosperity gospel myth, because that ain't in the Bible. You can read all through the Gospels. You're never going to find where it says, "And this prosperity gospel will be preached in all the world." Like it doesn't say that, right? It don't say that. Yet people try to just use that as like a reason not to believe, or to go on what they heard someone say when they were kids. And it's like they've just grown up believing this lie that oh, that's the prosperity gospel. And you know that they're believing that lie because they use that term. You know, so if you ever hear anybody say that, you know right away, like they don't know what they're talking about. It doesn't mean, and this is where, like what you said, oh yeah, back to the fragment of God thing. Even though people may not believe yet, like we're still called to love other people, right? Even if they don't believe. Doesn't mean we're going to walk down their paths. We might walk to their city path and say, hey, you know, like, hey, check out this cool place over here called the kingdom, you know. But if they don't want to hear it, you know, Jesus was pretty clear. He's like, he dusted his shoes off and walked away. He didn't cram anything down anybody's throat ever.
Yeah.
That's what religious people do. Right. So, you know,
we got to learn, right, not to waste our time on unfruitful pursuits. And
and that's where it gets hard for us, I think, because, you know, we might have family members that don't believe, whatever. We still got to be like kind to them. Right. And it's hard because you want to just kick them in the ass. You know, sometimes it's just like, wake up, you know, like, come on, you can't see this, really? You know, but it's like, that's just our pride and our ego getting in the way. Right. We got to put that in check if we're going to be kind and just respect the fact that, hey, they choose to believe something different. Okay, cool. And I think, you know, that's a big piece of, like, I talked a little bit about that in the book Triggerless when I wrote that, because that's a massive trigger for people in faith, is talking about their faith without losing it. When someone disagrees with what they believe, like, it just triggers the hell out of people in so many different ways. Like, just, you could probably write another book on how many triggers are caused by religious folks. Just on that, you know, it's like endless. But at the same time, we're also called to be kind to people and to love people and to love our enemies. Like, you know, it's not an easy walk. Let's just call it what it is. Like, it's not an easy walk to walk, but it's the walk we're called to walk, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. Were you able to catch the 10 minutes with Garrett?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I caught the whole thing. I've been on a Zoom since 11 o'clock this morning, and we got done at like right at about like 8, I think it was like 7:35, 7:40. I was like, man, I got to go get something to eat. But I turned it on. Yeah, I caught it from the time he turned it on. Yeah, it was good.
Was this something you were leading, or were you tuning in for someone else's?
No, it was actually it was a high level mastermind with Sage that does, you know, live events, and one of the people that I do some work with. I actually help her with her live events, and she'd bought into one of their high ticket programs, and this was one of their fulfillment days they do once a month. So it will be on the third Tuesday. I'll be on a 7-hour Zoom with them every third Tuesday for the remainder of the year. But it's a really big implementation workshop for running big live events, and I'm there kind of supporting her with what she's doing. But I learned a lot today from the back behind the scenes. This is the company that has run Tony Robbins events, Dean Graziosi's, Pedro's, even done some for Garrett. They're the behind the scenes of, like, they are the live event people, basically. So cool. Learning from them behind the scenes is really, I mean, I got like a Evernote just like slap full. I got really clear on my who today too, which was really good. So, good. But yeah, I caught all of this. Matter of fact, she talked a lot about Garrett today, because I think Garrett's hired her to do the Free Man event a couple of years ago. And I think they probably have hired Garrett, because the way they were talking about certain things, I was like, yep, they've worked together a little bit. I mean, you know, you can just tell when somebody's worked with Garrett or not, almost. Like, it's pretty obvious. He changes people in a way that's almost, it's like it gets on you and you can't get it off of you, kind of thing. Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. I suppose so, huh? Yeah. But yeah, I did see that. What was that call? Was that a call with the I looked like mostly women on that call.
Yeah, the recording I pulled that from was let's see, within the hang on. I'm pulling it up in the background and I accidentally clicked it on again, but it's the launch call. So there's a kings group, men only, and a queens group now. So yeah, we got the powerful warrior women back in the game again.
So glad they did that.
I can't recall her name, but the one who's been leading those recently is what's the man who runs Superhuman Fathers? Kyle Carnahan. I believe it's his wife.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a hell of a good duo right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
just so you know, I mean, I'm in your group, you know, doing your thing, but I just went through Warrior Method last month. And at the end of that, I did sign up for certified trainer, which is going to be happening next month.
I saw your comment somewhere, I believe. So congrats, man. That's exciting.
Yeah. And what's crazy is the girl that I've been coaching for the past, 3 months, she kind of came in the back door and joined the Warrior Method. I didn't know she was doing it, but she jumped in there. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going too." I'm like, "Really? Like, why didn't we talk about this first?" But and then after that method event, she signed up to be in person for Warrior Certified Trainer. And I was like, "You better get to work on learning the Warrior's way if you want to be a certified trainer."
Oh wow.
Because it's going to be, yeah, she just jumped. She's a quick start. She kind of reminds me a lot of Pedro. She's just like, okay, I want to do something, go. Like she don't even hesitate. No pause to ask a question. It's just go. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting for her, being in the headquarters next month for that.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely, sorry, one more time.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what to expect from it yet. He hasn't really issued out any pre-work as far as like should we be going through the Wake Up Warrior Challenge again. I'm just going to start back from zero and just run back through all the peaks. I mean, I'd already finished. I was on Summit 4 when he reset everything. So I mean, technically, I should just run back through them all again. And
so when I enrolled for the first trainer certification boot camp or whatnot, back, it was last July. Yeah. My process, I went through I believe you have access to them all with your method, boot camp already. And you've probably gone through with them all, but yeah, like strategic seduction was one that we've all been through multiple times, but trying to remember how collision and communication, right?
That one was awesome.
And what's the other one with the pit to peak?
The comprehensive consulting.
Yeah, comprehensive consulting and frame secrets from Coach Sam. Those four were my kind of that's what I was assigned before.
Yeah, they sent that out. It's so weird. They sent me those for method, and that comprehensive consulting was like the missing that was the freaking holy grail of like the missing pieces for me to put everything of Warrior together in one spot was that one training. I mean, if anybody hears this and they don't have access or they don't know what we're talking about, they just don't know what we're talking about. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we got some inside baseball here.
That was an amazing training that really shows you how to get massive, meaningful transformation in anything you're teaching somebody. Like it doesn't even have to be what you're teaching them. That's what's cool about it, because it's like, I think Myron said it this way. He's like, all I do as a coach or trainer is show up and ask questions. The content comes from who I'm talking to. And I put context to it or a frame. And it's the same thing, just done differently. And yeah, so I mean, you don't have to be like Einstein expert in your field to ask people questions and help them go from this point to that point. But there is a science to it, 100%. So,
well, yeah, Garrett is the king
good.
of like the frames, right? And how to create the right containers to facilitate powerful conversation.
He calls that I think he calls it his foundational flow frame, and it's a beautiful thing. There's some massive depth to it. I mean, I just look at it. I've applied it in a simple form in a workshop environment, live with a couple of live students, just to test it. and both of them converted to my offer at the back end of it. Like, it was powerful. I was like, damn,
Nice,
I
man.
need to get more people
That's
in
great.
on this.
Yes, you do. Well, fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna be interesting to see what happens with Trainer, and of course I'm gonna still stay in here and support you with what you're doing, because I mean, we're all gonna be growing and doing different things, but I'm gonna be cranking out some stuff on myself with the Triggerless book, and it's gonna be a very interesting year, man. Very interesting year.
Sure. Yeah, I think it sure will. Yeah.
Oh, I want to ask
Do you
you,
think-
are you gonna do a separate call inside of this group that's not recorded for like people that want to like get real with stuff? Because I know that might be why some of the guys might not want to come on the call, because they really want to talk about some deep shit. Or is that like
Well,
a
so
different pay level for you or something?
Yeah, I think moving forward, like I don't mind providing that at all, but it takes a lot out of me. So yeah, I mean, I need to, create a more clear frame. But I do think, yeah, that's why I'm turning this call kind of into a little bit more. It will be, if you didn't catch the very beginning, I was trying to clarify for everybody's sake. Yeah, these are streaming to my YouTube channel right now. It's probably only going to get 15 views. And, those people, that's like someone who tuned in for 15 seconds, by the way. So I always try to remind people, like, there's going to be very few other human beings who actually have the time or desire to sit and watch you share some of that stuff for any lengthy period of time.
I think it's cool that you want to stream these live, because that helps you build awareness out there in the world, for like other people that might be interested in this conversation and want to get in. So I don't see a problem with that. I just know that a lot of people, they're not going to come in and like probably have their weekly review with you and like go super deep or anything like that if they know it's being broadcast on YouTube. Like, yeah, not going to share all that, but
So this Tuesday call, I guess I'm looking at it more and more like almost let's come to the table if you can and if you want, and help me co-create it's a podcast almost, right? So we'll have this ongoing, unfolding conversation around the Warrior's Way journey, and all the stages from the pit to the peak, and all the principles and protocols of the Warrior operating system. And yeah, I think you especially, Samuel, but any of the guys, I'd love if you guys want to show up and bring your perspective and share what you feel comfortable sharing, just how, what examples you have or what take you have. Then, like if people want a more either small group or one-on-one, a private session with me, like that's where I'm trying to kind of create this space for either power room or war room. So yeah, that would be something to look at for anyone who wants more privacy and just like a consistent check-in. I'd love to do that, but yeah, I'm gonna have a different price tag and more higher level commitment.
Yeah, I do that. And I do that in my quarterly group where, the folks in there, I come in every Friday, we go live and we do a week in review, check in with each one of them. It's a small group, so I can do that. And obviously when the group gets so big, I won't be able to do that with every single person. But the whole point is, is just to model for them how to do a weekly check-in so they get it done. So they don't need me to actually walk them through it. Right. If anything, I tell people when they come into I call it a quarterly game. Because I only work with people 1 quarter at a time. It's like, hey, a quarter goes by. If you want to keep working with me, great. If you don't, have a nice day. I hope I helped you lead yourself to the point that you don't need me. And then, there'll come a quarter end where you leave, right? Like, I don't want you dependent on me forever, right? I want you to come in, learn what you need to learn from me, lead yourself and go. But as part of that, I do the weekly thing, and I model for them and I walk them through, how to look back, how to look forward, what's working, what's not working, what's the big door, what are the 4 keys. And we just hammer that every week. Like every week we hammer that. And I go into great detail with them. And, you can do that with one person in like about 5 or 10 minutes. Doesn't take very long. But if you get 20, 30 people, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, and so to relate back to like the experience that you and I and many of us had with like Warrior Shelter, like, yeah, I think that's why I kind of borrowed the fireside chat concept. If you saw that in the Facebook group, I think, yeah, like we'll shift the container, the frame a bit, just so it's kind of it can grow into a large group training, and we don't have to go too deep for anybody who's uncomfortable sharing that stuff, but we can just share this conversation around the whole operating system. And then I think we will start to dial in like War Room, and to provide that space for people who want the more intimate venue to share whatever they're facing, struggles and successes.
Now, these other, the War Room and Boardroom and things like that you're talking about, are these things that people need to reach out to you for, to like fill an application out for, to figure out what that's all about?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to kingscouncil.com. Anybody who sees this, you can go to kingscouncil.com, and that'll take you to my
you got that domain? Really?
I own that, baby. That's mine. Yep.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'll share the story another time, but that's several years in the making. So we'll see exactly where that goes. But for now, I've kind of just redirected that to my War Room offer. So I think right now I'm gearing up to have just a handful of guys for Q2. So if that, whether that's you, Samuel, or anyone else, if you guys are interested to be part of a War Room where, like for 3 months, 12 or 13 weeks, I think we'll join, 4 to 5 other guys and just really get real and raw on a consistent weekly basis, holding each other's feet to the fire. And that call is specifically about, what is your door every week? Like, what are you really committed to? And then we can always come back and keep each other accountable.
You're playing the game at that point. That's a game playing call. Yeah.
Right.
And that's really what
this will be much more. This will be more of a learning call and just sharing it. Like I said, kind of, I think we'll sort of turn it into a warrior podcast, if you will. I love having you here, man. Thank you for bringing what you have, and you're the perfect person too right now, because I'm happy to showcase what you're working on. Your book fits into this perfectly, but yeah, if anyone wants more one-on-one or to go deeper, you can always reach out to me or check kingscouncil.com or herofoundry.org. Well,
hopefully
there's lots more there.
I'm glad you got those websites there mentioned. So people that see the video, they can actually go see that. Maybe on your YouTube video, go back and put those links in the comments so people can find your website. So it looks like next week's call will be on the 27th. So my book's going to launch on the 29th. So I'll have inside the book, I got a bunch of domains I'm setting up this week so that they'll all be like active and working. And then it's just going to be balls to the freaking wall for the rest of the year, promoting the heck out of that book.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. You think you're on target to get it launched on the 29th?
Oh yeah. I just got the first 20 copies in. I mean, I got the physical books, that I can send out myself. Of course, I can also just go on Amazon and buy it. You can go on Amazon and buy it right now. It's actually live on Amazon already, but the price on Amazon, I'm going to sell it on my website, for a little bit less, but I didn't want to put it on there. Go ahead.
But if people visit that Amazon link, it's not a pre-order, but that'll actually ship soon. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah. If Amazon ships books to where you're at, you can buy it on Amazon and it'll ship it to you. Like, if you're in the States, you get Amazon Prime and you get it in like 2 days. I don't know. They probably got a fulfillment thing near you in the Philippines. I don't know.
It's funny because 2 years ago we couldn't order stuff through Amazon, but you can get some things now. Check it out. But I also want a signed copy. So, and I want to talk with you.
If you would email me your address again, if you would, because I've got one of these 20 copies. One of them's going to you. I'm going to mail you one. Otherwise, I don't want you to buy it on Amazon, because on Amazon it's $80. I didn't put the book on there for cheap, mainly because 2 things. One, it's a damn good book. 2, it's premium priced for a reason.
Yeah.
Most books you go on Amazon, at the most, they're going to be, I mean, the most expensive ones you usually see on there, like 20, 30, 30 bucks. And I'm like, you know what? This isn't really just a book. It's actually a workbook that you could use for a whole year, possibly 2 years before you would maybe need another copy, or just start using another notebook with it for all the stuff it asks. Cause you can go back to this thing like every 90 days if you want to. Because, you measure backwards and see your growth. But because of that, I was like, I'm going to be using this book in my workshops that I'm going to run, that I'm going to start promoting next month. And inside of the workshop, the workshop costs X amount of dollars. I want them to then go buy the book on Amazon. They'll get it within 2 days. So they have to sign up at least 5 days before the workshop to make sure they get the book on time. I'm going to guide them through the workshop with the book and get them stacking, because that's the whole point of the book, is to get them to learn how to handle their triggers in a way that they've never been able to do before. And I'm going to do it. We'll let them use the stack for 2 weeks for $1. They get the 14-day trial for $1. They can stack for 2 weeks. And then I'm going to guide them on what to stack on as they're stacking. And I'm going to lean them into it's a godly conversation of a man who decided to start reading the Bible for himself. 21 years ago now. That's when that happened. Nice. And I tell that story in the first chapter. And then I go into like some in-depth and ask them really specific questions. I think if you look on there, there's a place on there you can click and read part of the first chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a place on there where you can do that. But that's it. Yeah, I think it lets you read a little bit. Yep. You keep scrolling.
Yeah,
I think
so
it lets you read.
For anybody who's tuning in, Samuel's book is called Triggerless. Allow the heart of the king to help you master your emotional intelligence with the light of truth, by Samuel J. Sneed. So, I can't wait to get a copy, bro.
Yeah, and you can see all the chapter titles there. So the workshop's actually going to be taking them through those different chapters, those different topics. And I cover a wide variety of stuff, but every bit of it's absolutely intentional and on purpose to help somebody really become a powerful co-creator with God, and also to really pull out the righteous desire that they feel is right for them. The stack's going to help them do that because of the way I ask specific questions through this. So it's it's going to be a powerful thing, but I just feel like it's going to be even more powerful if I take people through it in a workshop setting where I can spend some time with them, probably about an hour and a half each day for about 7 days. And we go through this whole book. And then for homework each day, they'll be doing specific stacks, answering 2 or 3 questions. It's going to be powerful.
Yeah, man. Well, when the time comes, keep me in the loop, because I want to attend one of your workshops. So I'm really excited. Yeah, to get my hands on this and go through the experience one of these days soon with you, I hope.
Yeah, I didn't even realize
it looks like,
if you keep scrolling, it lets you read part of the first chapter. I didn't know that till I looked at it, and I was like, oh, look at there, man. You can read through the dang part of the book. What the heck?
Well, yeah. I hope you intended for that, or it's just a couple
I didn't even know
pages,
they did that until I was just looking at it. It looks like it doesn't go through the whole first chapter, but it gets a little bit of the story. Yeah. Which is cool. But it is live on there. It went live on there, I think, February 6th. And I've had a few of my friends grab a copy because they were too impatient. They didn't want to wait for it. I'm like, well, thanks for buying it. But at the same time, if somebody spends that kind of money, you think about $80, it's like people spend more than that to go take a challenge that they don't even do anything with. Right.
Yeah.
Or they take their family out for pizza for a night, and hell, $80 is gone. This is something that's like, and I don't know if you can see, if you go back to the main page, it might show you like the back cover. I think I got one of them sitting right here. Somewhere on the back cover. Yeah, there it is. It says, get out of your head, get more done by becoming triggerless. God willing, even an entrepreneur can pull it off too. And that's just me being a little joking, playing around, with a little phrase. But the one thing in there that really, really I wanted to put on the back, it says, this is the one book you've never picked up that will help you do the work you've never done. And I don't say that lightly. Like, that is not lightly, because I'm talking about becoming triggerless is not just a selfish thing that you're trying to do. Like, oh, I just want to trigger myself less. I want to be less triggered. It's about building a relationship with God that's so solid that you become unshakable.
Mhm.
Because when you're triggered, it's rocking your foundations and you become shakable. So when you become triggered less, it's because you're solidifying your foundation. And therefore, you realize most of the stuff that used to trigger you is meaningless. This is the place you get to eventually, where you just realize it's nonsense, it's ridiculousness, it's ignorance coming at me this way, it's stupidity coming at me this way. And you just get to a place where you're just like, you know what, that stuff used to bug the hell out of me. It used to trigger me all the time, and I just get all upset and mad and pissed, and and of course, you know as well as I do, when you practice stacking for a long period of time, you stop sedating a lot of stuff. That makes you more triggerless. So the stack is a huge key to this, actually pulling it off.
Yeah.
So having the book's
Absolutely.
great. It's a great read, but if you do the stacks going through the book for 2 weeks, it's gonna blow your freaking mind. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, talk about prosperity, right? I think this, to eliminate or to diminish your triggerability. Is that a word? I just made a word, triggerability. But
Triggerability, yeah, I like it.
To increase your emotional intelligence really is to be more, right? So you can do more, you can show up bigger and better for others. Like you say,
and all of that comes back
not a
down
selfish
to
thing, but
and that all comes back down to solidifying your foundation with who you are.
yeah.
That's why when you said in the beginning of this call tonight, even Garrett said it, prosperity is a way of being. And it's a way of being from that place of standing on that solid rock foundation of knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the place that you can become triggered less. You're never going to get rid of triggers in your life. Don't let me, I'm not trying to fool nobody by making you think like it doesn't say triggers gone. That's not the name of the book.
Yeah.
It's that you will just be triggered less because you will learn not to allow. Well, that's one thing you will learn in the book is that everything that triggers you is something that you're allowing to happen. So there's a massive amount of self-responsibility that takes place inside of this. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation that I just felt like needed some more depth to it. And yeah, I've been talking about this for several years. I just never thought about putting it in a book till last fall. And I was just like, wow, this one needs to be written. And so it got done. So glad it got done.
I mean, it's amazing that you were able to put it together, and I'm sure that this was months of work, so it's really really amazing to see the culmination of it here.
Yeah,
I want to tie it back to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest reason that I got it written as fast as I did, or why I didn't write it earlier, is some of the stuff that I teach in it. I wanted to proof the concepts with people, testing it with people, trying these things with people, and like just proving I already knew the stack worked. I knew it worked for me. I've known it's worked for thousands of people, but there's other things I talk about in the book that I wanted to actually test with people. So I've been doing that for about 3 months, just testing it, making sure like, okay, it worked again. Okay, this works. Like there's no doubt about it. That works before it made it in there. And then once I got that, I was just like, okay, I'm ready to write it. And I wrote it in the weekend. After doing all that work, it was just like, knocked it right out. So what do you want to tie it back to?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it lays on top of this framework from this chapter 2 on the peak of prosperity perfectly, really, because we're talking about like, having a space, right, to connect with others. Because trigger, I think for the most part, like if you could exist in a world all by yourself, you probably wouldn't have many triggers, but triggers crop up in relationship, right? So it kind of relates back to what we're talking about on today's call. You have to awaken your communion, your relation to others, it's like your involvement in community. I think for me, I resisted that because there was too many triggers, and I was so I was stuck in a state of shock and dealing with PTSD. It's like too much pain, right? Too sensitive. So I just always kept people at arm's distance, if that makes sense. And then we talked about activating your truth, like living in truth, seeking, speaking, walking in the truth, and how that is the foundation, right, that we need to build the rest of our lives on, really. I
Yeah, the
think,
book does
like
kind of follow
Warrior.
along that pretty good. It does.
So say that one more time.
It doesn't follow it like exactly like word for word verbatim, but yeah, it does. It does follow a lot of this. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to paint a picture because I think this is it's kind of a step-by-step recipe, I suppose, for how to get your life back on track towards the peak, right? Towards
Yeah, and each one of these,
abundance and prosperity.
from awaken to ascend. I mean, it's like, and that happens in every one of the core 4 domains.
Mhm.
So it's like you're gonna have to awaken in your body, in your being, in your balance, and your business before you can ever ascend in any of them.
Mhm.
I think for the talk that you're giving today, though, I thought you did an excellent job as you laid all this out earlier. I was listening to you as I was going to get something to eat. I'm like, man, no, he's doing a good job, man. I don't even know if I want to get on live and mess him up tonight. Like, he's doing a good job.
Well,
But
thank you, bro.
no, I thought you were just rolling through it beautifully, the way you explained this. But as you're doing that, like what you started with tonight, when Garrett was talking about the prosperity being a way of being,
Mhm.
I think that is the key to the whole puzzle. Like, it all
Yeah.
starts with who you are being in body, being,
Mhm.
balance, and business. Like, it's everything. Like, you can't just start with the body. You can't just start with the business. You really need to start with who you're being. And if that guy's dead asleep, then you need to wake him up, because
Yeah.
nothing else is ever
Well,
going to come into place until you do.
so yeah, that's where I think that acceleration of your soul comes into play, right? You need the right container to be able to even do that in, firstly. And I think what we
Mhm.
learned from Garrett's 10 minutes and from this chapter, and so it looks like it relates well to what your topic is with triggerless. It's like that takes place in relationship with others. It can't happen in isolation, right? Because that's hell. Isolation it ends up being hell, right?
That's the hardest
But
part
so
about
you
business.
have to, it takes time, right, to kind of create the right frame, to change your narrative, to begin to accept, like, yeah, we're going to talk about truth here, and we're going to touch on some painful things, like that's part of the process. But then it starts to create momentum and acceleration within that frame. So one container that happens in, for many of us, for me, for you, is Warrior, right? I'd say another container is the Hero Foundry. That's what we're building together as well, is a community where we have communion, where we can share truth, and where it sets up the right circumstances for your personal acceleration and growth. But that the next step, here in this conversation, it was kind of posed around marriage and your spouse, but that next stage or whatnot, acceptance of others in general, like that's the point where you need to have emotional intelligence. You need to learn to accept people where they're at, and for who they are, even though nobody's perfect, right? But yeah, I think and then you can start to align, whether it's your family with your children, or whether it's people in your business or in your church. It's all about, how do we relate with others? How do we hold the space for others imperfections and rough edges, right? And our own, and together we can ascend, right? But it's impossible to do alone.
100%, 100%. Like, we're in the people business because God decided to put a bunch of people down here and give them freedom of choice and dominion, not over each other, but over the earth. But now we have to get along with each other, and that's where all the triggers come in.
That's the
Because
hard part.
and I think Garrett said it many times. He's like, look, if you want to get good at sales, you got to get good at people. You have to understand people. If you want to get good, study people, study what people do. People are pretty predictable, you know. depending on if they're in scarcity or if they're in abundance. They typically act very similar, right? Depending on which one of those they're in. The scarcity person's like super desperate, probably going to be a little shady. Who knows what they might do? They're very desperate, right? Whereas the person in abundance is probably more laid back, more giving, more relaxed, more happy. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's almost silly how simple humans can be, yet everybody's at their little ebb and flow of where they're at based on how they're being triggered and so forth, you know. So yeah, it makes it challenging, but it also makes life interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, real quick before he goes, I hope Rico, man, I saw you left a comment. Good to see you too, brother. Just FYI, Samuel, Ricardo is an old friend and client who was actually part of the Foundry from very early on, like from I want to say late 2018. And I led him and a couple other friends and colleagues through a lot of stack training, kind of like you were saying before. I mean, I've been testing these concepts as well in a similar way for a couple of years. But yeah, I think this year my commitment is to finally pull it together and put out my own book as well, like you've done. But would love, yeah, Rico, if you're still hanging around or if you tune in again, we'd love to have you join us again. You know, come get in the inner circle in the Foundry. You know where to find me. But I think, yeah, it's been fun and rewarding, and you know, this is like a space where we get to do this together. All these things you see on the screen, it's a kind of a container to support one another and encourage each other to rise, right, from wherever you're at. But if you ever experience that pit of scarcity thinking, or if you're experiencing, you know, financial troubles in your journey to build something, you know, that's why it's good to have each other. It's instrumental for me. So
Awesome.
yeah,
brother.
thanks.
Good call tonight. Good call, man.
Thanks for
I'm
being
not-
here, Samuel. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. And yeah, we'll be here again next week and hopefully every Tuesday, unless there's a big holiday. But next week we will look at the principles of power. So
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us.
All
All right,
right,
Samuel,
brother.
any last words, my friend?
No, I'm good, man. I've been on Zoom since 11 o'clock this morning. I'm done. Adios.
Yeah, it's late for you. Get some rest, my friend. Thanks for
All right,
being here,
brother.
buddy.
See ya.
All right. Talk to you soon, man. Have a
All right,
good
bye.
week. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Rico, hope to see you and catch up with you soon, my man. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.